I just graduated high school, and in the past 12 months, I've gone to Washington, D.C. twice. After taking everything into account, I was technically paid over $3,000 to fly to the capital of the United States of America. And in this video, you're about to find out what an all-expenses-paid trip like this entails and how it completely changed my life trajectory. 1 year ago, I was in what some people consider high school hell. I was taking more AP classes than hours of sleep I got in a week. Then I went to France, and it was there that I got an email from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration telling me that I had been selected from over 650 applicants for a program that would bring me to Washington, D.C. Little did I know, this program would change everything. I hop on what I will soon learn is a commuter plane from Denver to D.C. When I stepped out of the plane, I was shell-shocked. Never have I felt more like an imposter than standing there in the streets of Washington, D.C. with 3 pairs of fancy clothes in my suitcase, my mom by my side, and the White House in front of me. I had no idea what I was doing. And boy, my life was about to change. Day 1 was about getting to know the people. We linked up at 8:30 in the hotel lobby with about half an hour to 45 minutes for me to meet all 14 of the other fellows, as well as the main staff for the program who were going places like Columbia and were Stanford alums. By 9:15, we had walked to the Department of Commerce building and gone through airport-like security before looking around to see an incredibly fancy office building. All that was to get into the Department of Commerce building, also known as the HCHB, Herbert C. Hoover Building. We went up the fanciest elevator I have ever been in before walking past a hallway of flags where the Secretary of Commerce's office resides. Down the hallway was the room we spent the rest of the week in. We ate breakfast until 9:45 with free coffee and free tea and free orange juice and apple juice. All the things you really need in life. After breakfast, we got to meet presidentially appointed Dr. Rick Spinrad, administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. For about an hour, we got to go around the room and kind of have a conversation with this very inspirational and motivated 60 or 70-year-old man who is still working in the public office. After that, we had a bigger introduction to the fellowship, meeting the main coordinators and executives of the partnerships that make the program run. Before I knew it, it was already time for lunch. The afternoon was filled with one big field trip around the city. Around 3:30, we went to the Natural History Museum, which was insane to see the biggest diamond in the world, the one that has all those curses that they talk about. We also saw this big globe thing that was sponsored by NOAA. Around 5:30, we got a stroll around the National Mall, seeing and taking pictures in front of the Washington Monument and the White House for the very important press release of the program that I'm sure many people read. Then at about 6:30 or 7, we headed over to the Old Ebbitt Grill, which I was told is a DC institution, and boy did they have the best shrimp and grits I have ever eaten in my entire life. To be fair, I think it was also the only shrimp and grits I have ever eaten in my entire life. At around 8 o'clock, we got to head back to the hotel for the end of day 1. But this did not mean it was the end of the day for me or any of the other fellows. In fact, this was just the beginning. After a quick break in our rooms to change clothes and all that, we linked back up in the hotel lobby before hitting the streets of Washington, D.C. at night. Day 2 started off with a bang. Again, free breakfast after a quick walk down the block from our hotel to the HCHB building, right before a couple hours of workshops. We got to have yet another wonderfully timed lunch before taking an Uber to the Library of Congress and the Capitol building. Unfortunately, we got there right at 4 o'clock, which is when our private tour was supposed to happen, but ended up closing down the Capitol building, which made everything a little bit complicated, and we never actually got to do our private tour. After that little fiasco, we walked down to the Dirksen Senate office building, where many of the U.S. senators and their staff members work, but also where there are hearing chambers. This is where certain committees actually go and fight out their beliefs before it's actually on the Senate floor or the floor of the House of Representatives. It was in one of these rooms that we actually got to do one of the coolest career panels I've ever been a part of in my entire life. We got to hear from a bunch of people who work in NOAA, from economists to lawyers to marine biologists and all sorts of people in between. At 5:30, after the career panel, we took another Uber to dinner at the Founding Farmers Restaurant near Chinatown. Another great meal with great conversations with really cool people, started to really solidify the friendships before going back to the Hamilton Hotel again at 7:30 p.m. But again, the day was far from over. On the night of day 2, the squad decided to hit up Bougie Street. This is a name we came up with because you could see every single luxury brand in DC in one street with water fountains and all sorts of very high-end and exciting stuff. We even treated ourselves to a nice $8 single scoop of ice cream. Not worth it though, because Hermé and Gucci were right there next to us. Day 3 started like any other day that week, with a walk to the HCHB building, again going through airport-like security, and again going up the fancy elevator, again passing the Hall of Flags, and again getting free breakfasts. Then at 9:30 we debriefed day 1 and 2 before jumping into a couple more workshops. At noon, we got to eat yet another bougie business meal and actually got to explore a little bit of the Department of Commerce building, when by chance in one of the common rooms somebody named Willie Ramos saw us in passing and decided to say hi. As it turns out, Mr. Ramos actually worked in the Economic Development Administration in the Department of Commerce, a field that I am really interested in. So for the next 10 or 15 minutes, I actually got to interview him for my extended essay for the IB diploma that was also on economics.
Those are all very smart questions.
Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mateo.
After that exciting side quest, it was about 1 o'clock and we got to hop on a Zoom call with a couple people from last year's group of fellows. For the rest of the afternoon, we started to realize that our time together was very limited. We went to the National Portrait Gallery by Uber and got to see some really cool art. We were all having so much fun and none of us really wanted the fellowship to end, but all good things must end and all good things should end with a bang, and that's exactly how this one ended. We got to go to a restaurant called Clyde's in Chinatown. Of course, we had to get NA beer and mock cocktails just to make the vibe feel correct. Then at 7:30, we walked back to the hotel before heading back to hit the DC streets one last time. On night 3, we decided to get boba tea, say cheers, and call it a night. All in all, I think it's safe to say that this is the coolest summer program I did throughout high school, and it had a huge influence on my immediate life circumstances, and I think the connections I made will continue to benefit me for years to come. I was shocked to see 3 people get into Stanford, 2 people into Berkeley, 1 person into Princeton, people into UConn, and people into Texas, me into UChicago, people into Tufts, into Cornell. So if you're in high school and you feel like you need a guide on college apps, summer programs, and or even AP and IB tests, then subscribe just to have a buddy to support you along the way. And if you want to commit to having the ultimate academic comeback, then watch this video next, because that's exactly what I talk about there.